plan their weddings months in advance. Venues are booked, caterers consulted, guest lists agonized over until everyone involved is ready to elope just to avoid the drama. Jade Anderson. Most people plan their weddings months in advance. Venues are booked, caterers consulted, guest lists agonized over until everyone involved is ready to elope just to avoid the drama. Jade Anderson decided to get married on a Tuesday afternoon while folding laundry. She was pulling one of Freddie's mysteriously manifested t-shirts from the dryer, the fabric still warm against her hands, when the thought struck her with the force of revelation. She wanted to marry him. Wanted to bind herself to Freddy Krueger in every way that mattered, make official what had been true since the moment she'd refused to scream in that first dream. The fact that he was technically dead and she was alive seemed like a minor logistical issue at best. Freddy materialized in the doorway of her bedroom, his human form today, wearing jeans that sat low on his hips and nothing else. He'd been experimenting with his ability to shift between forms, and lately he'd taken to spending mornings as human, basking in sensations he'd thought lost forever. "You're thinking very loud thoughts," he observed, leaning against the doorframe with predatory grace. "Care to share with the class?" Jade set down the laundry basket and turned to face him fully. "Marry me." Freddy blinked. It was possibly the first time she'd ever seen him genuinely surprised. His blue eyes went wide, and for a moment the demon underneath flickered through, amber bleeding into the iris before settling back to human. "What?" "You heard me. Marry me. Let's get married. Make it official. Bind ourselves together in every way that exists." The words were tumbling out now, gaining momentum. "I know it's crazy. I know we can't exactly go down to City Hall and file paperwork when one of us is a dream demon who's been dead for decades. But we don't need their rules. We make our own rules. We've been making our own rules from the beginning." Freddy pushed off from the doorframe and crossed to her in 3 long strides. His hands found her face, tilting it up so he could search her expression with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You want to marry me," he said slowly, like he was testing the words. "You want to bind yourself to a nightmare for eternity. Jade, do you understand what you're asking for? Marriage is meant to be until death do you part. I'm already dead. That means you'd be stuck with me forever. Literally forever. No escape clause, no divorce, no walking away when you finally realize how fucked up this is." "I know exactly what I'm asking for." Jade's hands came up to cover his, holding them against her face. "I want forever with you, in dreams and waking, in every form you take. I want to be yours in every way that matters, with vows and promises and whatever passes for holy in our twisted little world. So yes, I want to marry you. The only question is whether you want to marry me." The smile that spread across Freddy's face was beautiful and terrible, and absolutely delighted. "You're insane." "So, marry me anyway." "Fuck yes, I'll marry you." He kissed her hard, claiming and possessive. "I'll marry you in every world that exists. I'll bind myself to you so thoroughly that the universe itself won't be able to tear us apart. You want forever? I'll give you forever, and then some." When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jade felt giddy with the certainty of it. So when? Where? How do 2 people like us even get married? Freddy's grin turned wicked. "Leave that to me. I've got ideas. Dark, twisted, perfectly us ideas." Now I'm intrigued. "You should be." He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist. "Give me 3 days. 3 days to build something worthy of you. Of us. And then, my fearless dreamer, I'm going to make you my wife in a ceremony that'll make the universe sit up and take notice." True to his word, Freddy disappeared into the dream realm for the next 3 days, only materializing briefly to steal kisses and promise her that what he was creating would be worth the wait. Jade spent those days in a state of anticipation that bordered on manic, unable to focus on anything except the knowledge that soon, very soon, she'd be married to the love of her life. The fact that said love was a supernatural entity who existed primarily in nightmares just made it more perfect. On the third night, Jade went to bed early with Freddy's instructions ringing in her ears. Wear something blue, your favorite color, and come ready to bind yourself to me for eternity. She had chosen a dress she'd been saving for a special occasion, royal blue silk that hugged her curves and fell to mid-high, with thin straps and a neckline that was just this side of scandalous. Her wild red hair was loose, tumbling over her shoulders in waves she'd actually managed to coax into something resembling style. Minimal makeup because Freddy preferred her natural anyway. When sleep pulled her under, the transition was immediate and startling. No gradual drift into dreams. One moment she was in her bed, the next she was standing at the entrance to something that stole her breath. A cathedral. But not any cathedral that had ever existed in the waking world. It rose before her, massive and impossible, constructed from materials that shouldn't exist. The walls were made of solidified shadow, smooth and cool to the touch. Stained glass windows towered overhead, but instead of depicting saints and biblical scenes, they showed moments from their relationship. Jade and Freddy's first meeting in the boiler room, their first kiss, the moment they'd shattered the barrier between worlds. Each window glowed with inner light, casting colors across the stone floor that shifted and moved like living things. The ceiling arched impossibly high, disappearing into darkness, punctuated by stars that wheeled in patterns that spelled out words in that dream language that made no sense but felt like poetry. Candles floated in the air, thousands of them, their flames burning in shades of blue and amber that reflected their bond. And down the center, a path. Not a traditional aisle, but something more organic. Flowers grew from the floor itself. Black roses and blue lilies and blooms that existed only in nightmares, creating a living carpet that led to the altar at the far end. The altar was simple compared to the grandeur around it. A raised platform of white marble veined with gold, and standing before it, waiting for her with an expression of absolute devotion, was Freddy. He'd chosen his demon form for this, and Jade understood why immediately. This was who he really was. The scarred, burned, dangerous thing that had claimed her from the first night. The fedora was gone, letting her see his face fully. His glove caught the candlelight, the blades gleaming with promise, and his eyes, those burning amber eyes, were fixed on her like she was the only thing in any world that mattered. Jade started down the aisle, her bare feet silent on the living flowers. She had no one to give her away, needed no one. This was her choice, made freely and fiercely, to walk toward the nightmare that had become her home. As she approached the altar, she noticed details she'd missed at first. The cathedral wasn't empty. Shadows lined the walls, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Not quite solid enough to be real beings, but present nonetheless. Witnesses from the dream realm, drawn by the significance of what was about to happen. When Jade reached the altar, Freddy extended his ungloved hand, and she took it without hesitation. His skin was warm against hers, solid and real in that way that said their bond had made this possible. "You're so fucking beautiful," Freddy said roughly. "That dress, that color. You wear my devotion like it's couture." "You built me a cathedral," Jade replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Out of dreams and nightmares and love. How am I supposed to not marry you after this?" "You're not. That's the point." A figure materialized behind the altar, and Jade had to suppress a laugh. Because of course Freddy would have thought of this detail. The officiant was a dream construct, neither male nor female, beautiful and terrible all at once. It wore robes that seemed to be woven from starlight, and spoke with a voice that resonated through the cathedral like distant thunder. We are gathered here, in this place between worlds, to witness the binding of two souls who have chosen each other against all logic and reason. The construct's eyes, pupilless and silver, looked between them. Jade Anderson, human and dreamer, who walks in darkness without fear. Frederick Krueger, nightmare made flesh, who has found redemption in the heart of the one he sought to terrorize. You have both chosen this bond freely? Yes, Jade and Freddy said together, their voices overlapping. Then speak your vows. Let the universe hear your promises and tremble at the audacity of your love. Freddy went first, his burned fingers tightening around Jade's hand as he spoke. I've killed more people than I can count. I've torn apart families, destroyed lives, reveled in fear and suffering for longer than you've been alive. I'm a monster in every sense of the word, and I can't promise to change that. What I can promise is this. Every breath you take, I'll be there. Every dream you have, I'll guard it. Every threat you face, I'll end it. I promise to love you with a devotion that borders on madness, to protect you with violence that knows no mercy, to bind myself to you so completely that even death can't separate us. His voice dropped, going rough with emotion. You made me remember what it feels like to want something besides fear, made me human again when I thought that part of me was burned away forever. So I promise you forever, Jade. In dreams and waking, in darkness and light, in every world that exists and some that don't. You're mine, and I'm yours, and nothing in any reality will ever change that. Tears were streaming down Jade's face by the time he finished, and she didn't bother wiping them away. When she spoke, her voice was steady, despite the emotion choking her. I was alone my whole life before you, never fitting in, never finding someone who understood the way I see the world. Everyone else wanted me to be less dark, less weird, less me. But you, she laughed through the tears. You met my darkness with your own and said, this is perfect. You're exactly what you should be. You made me feel seen in ways I've never experienced. So I promise you this, I'll never ask you to be less than what you are. I'll stand beside you when you're terrifying and violent and absolutely unhinged, and I'll love you more for it. I'll walk into your nightmares willingly, over and over, because that's where I found home. I promise to be your queen in every world you reign over, your partner in whatever darkness we create together, your safe place when even monsters need sanctuary. Her fingers laced through his, human hand and demon hand joined. I choose you, Freddy Krueger. In every form, in every moment, for every forever we can steal from the universe. You're my nightmare, my guardian, my love, and I'm never letting you go. The construct smiled, and it was like watching stars collide. Then, by the power vested in me, by the dream realm itself, by the authority of nightmares and the blessing of desire, I bind you together. Jade Anderson and Frederick Krueger, human and demon, dreamer and nightmare, you are now and forever joined. Let no force in any world attempt to separate what has been sealed here tonight. The cathedral shuddered, reality rippling outward from where they stood. Jade felt it like a physical thing, the bond between them solidifying into something tangible. A connection that went deeper than that previous link, more permanent than anything mortal marriage could create. You may kiss your bride, the construct said, already beginning to fade, and seal this union with passion that will echo through every dream in existence. Freddy didn't need to be told twice. He pulled Jade into his arms and kissed her with a desperation that bordered on violence, claiming her mouth like he was trying to devour her soul. Jade kissed him back with equal ferocity, her hands fisting in his sweater, her body pressed against his like she could climb inside him and live there. The cathedral erupted around them, The floating candles flared brighter, their flames shooting toward the ceiling. The stained glass windows shattered in cascades of color that reformed into new patterns, showing their future instead of their past. The flowers at their feet bloomed impossibly large, releasing perfume that smelled like smoke and cinnamon and forever. And the shadows lining the walls, those witnesses from the dream realm, they surged forward. Not threatening, but celebratory, swirling around the newly married couple in patterns that looked almost like dancing. When Freddie finally let Jade breathe, both of them were gasping, and the cathedral had transformed around them. The altar was gone. In its place, a bed had appeared, massive and covered in silk sheets the color of midnight, piled with pillows in shades of blue and amber. Subtle, Jade managed, her voice breathless. I'm never subtle. Freddie's hands were already working at the straps of her dress, his impatience palpable, and I'm done waiting. You're my wife now, mine in every way that matters, and I'm going to make very sure you understand exactly what that means. The dress dissolved under his touch, dream logic making quick work of the fabric until Jade stood before him in nothing but her skin and the fierce certainty of her choice. Freddie's eyes raked over her, possessive and hungry, and when he spoke, his voice had dropped into that gravelly purr that made heat pool low in her belly. Perfect. You're absolutely fucking perfect. He lifted her easily, carrying her to the bed and laying her down on silk that felt cool against her overheated skin. His clothes vanished as he followed her down, all scarred skin and lean muscle and controlled violence. The glove stayed on, because of course it did. It was as much a part of him as anything else. My wife, Freddie said, settling between her thighs, his body caging hers. My queen. My Jade. Do you know how long I've waited for this? How many centuries I spent thinking love was dead in me, that I'd burned it out along with everything else, and then you walked into my nightmare and brought it all back. Then show me. Jade's hands traced the scars on his chest, lining them again, claiming them. Show me what it means to be yours, to be married to a nightmare king. Gladly. His mouth found hers again, but gentler this time. Reverent almost, like he was memorizing the taste of her. Then he moved lower, kissing down her throat, across her collarbone, taking his time despite the urgency thrumming through both of them. When he reached her breasts, his teeth grazed her nipple, and Jade arched with a gasp. The bladed glove traced down her side, careful as always, but threatening enough to make her shiver. The contrast between danger and devotion, between the promise of violence and the absolute certainty that he'd never hurt her, made every touch more intense. I love you, Freddie murmured against her skin. My fearless girl, my wife. I'm going to spend eternity making sure you never regret choosing me. Never, Jade promised, her fingers tangling in his hair. Not for 1 second. He continued his exploration, mapping her body with mouth and hands, and the careful drag of blades that never cut but reminded her exactly what he was capable of. By the time he settled between her thighs, Jade was already trembling, desperate for more. Look at you, Freddie said, his voice dark with satisfaction. Already falling apart and I've barely touched you. What am I going to do with such a responsive wife? Whatever you want, Jade gasped. Everything you want. Just please, Freddie, I need. Her words cut off into a moan as his mouth found her center, his tongue working her with devastating precision. He knew exactly what she liked by now, exactly how to take her apart piece by piece. The pleasure built quickly, spiraling higher with each stroke of his tongue, each careful press of his fingers inside her. When the orgasm hit, Jade screamed his name loud enough that it echoed through the cathedral, bouncing off the walls and mixing with the sound of shattering glass as more stained windows exploded from the force of her pleasure. The dream realm itself was responding to their union, reality bending to accommodate the intensity of what they felt. Freddie worked her through it, drawing out every last shudder before crawling back up her body with a supremely satisfied expression. 1. I'm going to make you come at least 3 more times before I'm done with you. Ambitious, Jade managed, still breathless. I'm a demon. I'm a demon. Stamina comes with the territory. He kissed her, and she tasted herself on his lips, the intimacy of it making her shiver. When he finally positioned himself at her entrance, they both paused, just breathing together, savoring the moment before everything changed again. My wife, Freddie said again, like he couldn't stop saying it. Like the word held magic. My husband, Jade replied, testing the word and finding it perfect. Now claim your wife properly. He pushed inside in one smooth thrust, and they both made sounds of pure satisfaction. The stretch, the fullness, the perfect way they fit together never got old. Freddie stayed still for a moment, buried deep, his forehead pressed against hers. Mine, he breathed, eternally mine. Eternally yours, Jade agreed, and wrapped her legs around his waist. Now move, your wife has needs. Demanding. But he was already moving, setting a rhythm that was slow at first, almost torture. Each thrust deliberate, measured, designed to build the pleasure gradually instead of racing toward the peak. Jade tried to urge him faster, but Freddie caught her wrists and pinned them above her head with his ungloved hand, the bladed glove resting carefully against her ribs as a reminder of who was in control. No, he said firmly. Tonight, we do this my way, slow, thorough, making sure you feel every single moment of becoming mine. It was maddening and perfect all at once. The slow build of pleasure that had nowhere to go but up, spiraling higher with each careful thrust. Freddie's eyes never left hers, watching every expression that crossed her face, drinking in her reactions like they sustained him. So beautiful, he murmured. The way you look right now, taking me so perfectly, completely at my mercy. I could do this forever. Just watch you fall apart over and over, knowing I'm the only one who gets to see you like this. Freddie, please, Jade was begging now, past pride. I need more. Need you harder, faster, something. What's the magic word? Husband. My husband. Please, Freddie, please. Something cracked in his control at hearing her call him that. His pace increased, the careful rhythm giving way to something more desperate. The hand pinning her wrists tightened, and the bladed glove pressed harder against her ribs, not cutting, but present enough to remind her of the danger he represented. That's it, Freddie growled. Take what I give you. Show me how much you love being claimed by a monster. The pleasure built impossibly higher, and Jade could feel another orgasm approaching. This one different from the first, deeper, connected to something more than just physical sensation. Connected to the bond they'd just forged, to the vows they'd spoken, to the absolute certainty that they belonged to each other in every way that mattered. When it hit, Jade shattered completely. The orgasm tore through her with enough force that she couldn't even scream, could only arch and shake and feel reality come apart around her. The cathedral responded, the walls pulsing, the candles flaring bright enough to rival the sun, the stars overhead wheeling into new configurations. Freddie followed her over the edge moments later, her name a harsh shout as he came deep inside her, and as they crashed through that peak together, something shifted in the dream realm. The bond between them, already strong, solidified into something unbreakable. A connection that transcended marriage vows and physical union, becoming something metaphysical. They were bound, now, truly and completely bound. In every world, in every form, in every moment from this point forward, they were one unit, Two halves of a twisted whole, nightmare and dreamer, merged into something unprecedented. When the aftershocks finally faded, they collapsed together, tangled and gasping. Freddie released her wrists and rolled them so Jade was sprawled across his chest, her wild red hair curtaining them both. Holy shit, Jade managed after her breathing calmed. What was that? That felt different, more intense. That was the binding completing. Freddie's hand traced patterns on her bare back, idle and possessive. The ceremony started it, but consummating the marriage sealed it. We're not just married, Jade. We're bound on a level that goes beyond any mortal understanding. I can feel you now, even more than before. Your emotions, your presence, like you're part of me. I can feel you, too. Jade pressed her hand over his chest, feeling that strange not quite heartbeat. It's like there's a thread connecting us. No matter how far apart we are, I could follow it back to you. Good, because you're never getting away from me now. He said it lightly, but there was absolute conviction underneath. For better or worse, in nightmares and reality, you're stuck with me forever. Best decision I ever made, Jade said, and kissed him softly. They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other in the transformed cathedral. Eventually, Freddie conjured food because apparently he could do that here, and they had an absurd post-wedding feast while naked in bed. Wine that tasted like starlight, fruit that existed only in dreams, chocolate that melted on the tongue and made Freddie make sounds that were absolutely obscene. This is perfect, Jade declared, feeding him a strawberry and laughing when he bit her fingers playfully. If I'd had a normal wedding, there would have been awkward family members and bad DJ music and someone's drunk uncle hitting on the bridesmaids. This is so much better. I don't do anything halfway, Freddie said, pulling her back down for another kiss, especially not marrying the love of my existence. Love of your existence. That's very poetic for a child murderer. I'm a romantic. I keep telling you this. Eventually, exhaustion pulled at Jade despite being in a dream. The emotional weight of the day, combined with the intensity of their union, left her drained in the best way possible. Freddie sensed it and wrapped her in silk sheets that felt like clouds, holding her close while the cathedral settled around them into something peaceful. Sleep, he commanded gently. Real sleep. I'll keep watch. Always watching, Jade murmured, already drifting. Always watching, always protecting, always loving you. When Jade woke in the morning, she was back in her physical body in her blue-sheeted bed. But she wasn't alone. Freddie was there in his human form, stretched out beside her and actually asleep, which was unprecedented. His face in sleep was peaceful, younger somehow, and Jade took a moment just to study him. Her husband. She was married to Freddy Krueger. The thought should have been insane, but it just felt right. Like everything else about their relationship, it made perfect sense in its own twisted way. As if sensing her attention, Freddy's eyes opened, immediately finding hers. Morning, wife. Morning, husband. They grinned at each other like idiots, and then Jade noticed something that made her breath catch. On her left hand, a ring had appeared, silver band etched with patterns that looked like stylized flames, set with a stone that shifted colors in the light, red to amber to blue, cycling through the shades that represented them both. You gave me a ring, Jade said, holding her hand up to watch the stone catch the morning light. Couldn't have a wedding without rings. Freddie held up his own left hand, showing a matching band. His was thicker, more masculine, but the same shifting stone set in the center. They're bound to us. Can't be lost or stolen or removed unless we choose. Physical proof of what we promised each other. They're perfect. Jade traced the pattern on her ring, feeling the slight warmth of it against her skin. Everything was perfect. The cathedral, the vows, the consummation that broke reality a little bit. Only a little bit? Freddie pretended to be offended. I was going for a lot. Okay, a lot. You broke reality a lot. Better? Much. They got up eventually, moving through morning routines with the easy comfort of people who'd chosen to bind their lives together permanently. Jade made coffee while Freddie raided her fridge, both of them still marveling at the fact that he could taste everything fully in his human form. So, Jade said over breakfast, what do married people like us do now? Is there a honeymoon in the dream realm? Do we register at Nightmare Bed Bath and beyond? Freddie laughed, that rusty sound that meant genuine amusement. We do whatever we want. That's the beauty of making our own rules. We've already got a life between worlds. Now we just keep building it. Together. Forever. Forever, Jade repeated, and the word felt like a promise and a prayer and a threat all at once. I like the sound of that. They spent the day in comfortable domesticity, Jade calling in sick to work because there was no way she was going to the bookstore the day after marrying a dream demon. They watched movies, curled together on the couch, made lunch that was really just eating random snacks and calling it a meal, existed in the simple pleasure of being together without any drama or danger or world-ending stakes. It was perfect in its mundane normalcy. That evening, as the sun set and painted Jade's apartment in shades of amber and gold, they found themselves back in bed. Not for sleep this time, but because Freddie had declared that they needed to properly celebrate being married for a full 24 hours before returning to normal life. It's tradition, he'd said with mock seriousness. Since when do you care about tradition? Since it gives me an excuse to keep you naked and in bed for an entire day. Hard to argue with that logic. This time, their lovemaking was different. Slower, more exploratory, without the desperate intensity of the wedding night. They took their time learning each other again, even though they'd memorized every detail long ago. Whispered promises against skin, laughed at stupid jokes that only made sense to them, built pleasure gradually until it crested in waves that were gentler but no less satisfying. After, lying tangled together while the room grew dark around them, Jade felt contentment so deep it was almost frightening. This was everything she'd ever wanted without knowing how to ask for it. Love that was fierce and protective and completely unhinged. Partnership that accepted her darkness instead of trying to fix it. A future that was uncertain and strange, but absolutely theirs. Thank you, she said into the comfortable silence. For what? Freddie's fingers traced idle patterns on her bare shoulder. For choosing me back. For not running when I was too brave or too weird or too accepting of what you are. For building something beautiful with me out of nightmares and devotion. Jade, Freddie shifted so he could look at her properly. You're the one who did the choosing. I was just a nightmare drifting through dreams, looking for fear. You're the one who looked at me and saw something worth loving, saw possibility instead of just monster. You changed everything for me, so thank you for being exactly what you are, for loving me when everyone else would run screaming. They kissed, soft and sweet, and Jade felt the bond between them pulse with warmth. This was what marriage meant for them. Not the ceremony or the vows or the rings, though those mattered, but this moment, this choice to keep choosing each other over and over in every world and every form. So, Jade said eventually, what's next for Mr. and Mrs. Mike Macking? Freddie's grin turned wicked. Whatever we want. That's the beauty of making our own rules, remember? We've got eternity to figure it out. Eternity to build and create and terrify anyone stupid enough to threaten what we have. Eternity together. Sounds perfect. It will be. Because anything less than perfect isn't worthy of you. As darkness fully claimed the room, they drifted towards sleep in each other's arms. Tomorrow, they'd return to their life between worlds. Jade would go back to work at the bookstore. Freddie would return to managing his dream realm and occasionally terrorizing the truly deserving. They'd exist in that space they'd carved out together, neither fully in one world nor the other. But tonight, there were just two beings who'd found each other against impossible odds and decided to bind themselves together permanently. Nightmare and Dreamer, Monster and the woman who loved him, husband and wife. Eternally bound by vows that transcended death and life, by promises that would echo through every dream in existence, by a love that was too fierce to be contained by something as flimsy as reality's rules. The universe had tried to keep them apart, had thrown up barriers and boundaries, and the fundamental divide between waking and sleeping, living and dead, human and demon. They'd shattered every single obstacle without remorse. Because that's what you did when you found your perfect match. You fought for it, claimed it, bound yourself to it so completely that nothing could tear you apart. And Jade and Freddie, they'd done all of that and more. They'd built a life between worlds, survived threats and violence and a collision of realities, learned to exist in multiple forms, multiple states, multiple versions of themselves all at once. And now they'd sealed it with vows spoken in a cathedral of nightmares, consummated with passion that bent reality, marked with rings that couldn't be lost or stolen or removed. They were eternally bound, forever changed by choosing each other, forever protected by the absolute conviction that what they had was worth any price, any danger, any amount of impossibility. In the darkness of Jade's apartment, two heartbeats synchronized, one human and alive, one metaphysical and strange, both beating in perfect rhythm. A symphony of devotion written in pulse and breath and the absolute certainty of belonging. Somewhere in the dream realm, their cathedral still stood, a monument to love that conquered boundaries, a testament to the fact that sometimes the most beautiful things are born from darkness. And somewhere in the space between sleeping and waking, between nightmare and reality, between death and life, a bond pulsed with power, unbreakable, eternal, absolutely theirs. Mr. and Mrs. Nightmare King, eternally bound, forever choosing each other, in every world that existed and some that didn't. Perfect in their twisted, beautiful, completely impossible way. And neither of them would have changed a single thing. Episode 9, The Prince of Nightmares. Jade Anderson Kruger discovered she was pregnant while throwing up into a toilet at 3 in the morning, which seemed fitting given that nothing about her life had ever been conventional. The nausea had started a week ago,